Hillsborough Park is 45 acres of urban parkland which has served the needs of a community of about 30,000 people in North Sheffield since Edwardian times. Despite its somewhat drab appearance at present, it's still very much cherished and enjoyed by the people who live around the area. In October 1990, the Hillsborough Community Development Trust was approached by local parents who are active at the school across the road from the park with an idea, and they drew our attention to the potential that a derelict site next to Hillsborough Library would have to provide a recreation resource, a gardening resource and a study area for local schools and other groups within the community. As a result of that, we started having discussions with Sheffield City Council about the possibility of this site becoming a community garden. The Council's first reaction to the proposals was to recognise the problem that the derelict site presented, but suggested perhaps the car parking needs of the area were more important. And it was at that point that the community really got together and demonstrated to the Council how strongly it cherished the park and how much it wished to protect the open space that it had got there. And as a result of that, people got together and started developing the idea of the community garden, and that is the story that you're about to hear.
I've been a resident in this area all my life, known the park very well as a boy, and the development that's taking place now, it's something that is beyond our dreams, as we might as well say. I mean, it used to be a lovely place regarding a nursery, things like that. I mean, we were never allowed to go on certain areas of the grass, as everybody knows. And to see this development taking place today, I think it's fantastic, and all credit's due to those people who volunteered and come along to do this job. I mean, I hope it's for future generations, and future generations will take care of it once it's been put back as far as we can get it to its original state.
I'm almost 72 years of age, and I was born in Hillsborough, and I've lived here all my life. I'm a member also of the Hillsborough Trust, and I think we're trying to do a very good job to improve life in Hillsborough. I live on Chiltern Road, and I got a petition up among my neighbours to have the trees pruned, and we'd had no attention for over 10 years. And we sent a petition into the City Council, and progress was very, very slow. We didn't seem to get anything done, and I heard of the Hillsborough Trust and went to ask for the help. And this is how I became involved. They asked me if I'd become a member, and I attend most of the meetings there now.
I have been connected to this nursery for 40 years. I first came here when I was 16 years old as an apprentice for the then Parks Department, and over the years I've had a real affection for this place. It became very badly maintained. The money that was needed to replace the greenhouses was that much that the department decided to close it and centralise the nurseries up at Norton, which they did. I never agreed with that and tried for a long time to save the nursery and turn it into a cooperative, but that failed, so at the end of the day the nursery was closed and we were reallocated to Norton. After a while, it was decided that the nursery be turned into a training centre for the department's apprentices, because there was a larger influx of apprentices at that time, and there was no real area where they could do practical gardening. So a training centre was established, and it became basically what you see here at the moment. But after a while, when the local authorities' budget started to be squeezed, the number of apprentices was reduced again, and so it was decided that the nursery was no longer needed, and it was closed. From that time it became derelict.
I heard that through the meetings at the trust that this former nursery ground was to be made into a car park, and I was very, very upset about it, because this little park is such a lung for so many people, old and young, and the thoughts of more traffic piling into this park was just absolutely dreadful. And so I put my weight behind the pressures to get this into the care of the Hillsborough Trust, so that we could keep it and maintain it, develop it as a garden and maintain it when it was completed.
The 15 areas what I'm talking about are covered by bylaws, and nobody can do anything with them. They can't build in them, anything like that, without it sanctioned by the public as a whole. And we come to the time when the student games was on, and they wanted to build a tennis centre in the park. And our association, which I belonged to at the time, took it up, and glad to say, the people who came from the NRS took it up with us, and other groups in the area, they did the same. And we objected to it.
A lot of people we discovered actually cherished the park, cared very greatly for the park, and it is in fact the only piece of public open space in Hillsborough. So they got together when they heard of this proposal by the City Council and actually opposed it. They had public meetings, they called the councillors out, met with them, and made it very plain to the City Council and its representatives that it valued the piece of public open space and they wanted to keep that. And thankfully the council respected that and found another site for the tennis centre.
We started off really by looking for facilities for children in the area, to come to a green environment. All the schools in the area are tarmacked, all the play areas. When we needed to go out on a visit, it meant going quite a way, busing the children out. We knew that this area was here, and we came and looked at it, and it all branched really from that. We looked at the area and thought it would make a good wildlife area for the schools.
There were a group of people who came along from Hillsborough School, parents of kids at Hillsborough School, and they said there is an area that is derelict within the park that they think would make a very good area for children to come from the school and do horticultural study and wildlife appreciation. And it was in fact the area that was known then and probably still referred to by many people as the secret garden, and it's this area we're standing in now. It's called secret because of course it's been an area that the public hasn't had access to for many, many years.
I first read about it in local press, and they said they were doing a garden, a formal garden, and part of it was to be a wildlife garden. Now, because I'm interested in conservation work, and I do conservation work as part of my job, I thought I'd come down and see what we were all about. And when I came down, found out that they hadn't actually got anybody to do any design for the wildlife garden. They didn't really understand what was involved in doing it. They just thought it was a good idea to have one. So I volunteered my services to design the garden for them and help them to build it.
The Victorians always used to have heated walls in their walled gardens because they used to grow the peaches and nectarines on those heated walls. And it also raised the temperature inside the wall so that they could plant tender plants. That particular area there, I've never seen it work, but it has got obvious openings in the wall where they used to light fires and feed the fires. It is hollow, so that the flues drew the heat all around the wall and thus increase the temperatures.
We shall have school children coming. We're hoping to turn the potting sheds into a classroom and a sort of cover for elderly people who want a cup of tea and a sit down out of the rain perhaps if it's a bad day. The children will get great benefit from it. Instead of having to go a long way to Rivlin Valley for the nature study, they'll only have to walk across the park in some cases, or just a few 100 yards into the garden to have the lessons.
Hopefully we'll encourage people to get interested in conservation work, and if they're not interested in actually doing the conservation work, they're interested in the conservation of our native species. I mean, this is one of the things that we're about, conserving our native species for the future, getting kids in here at an early enough age to learn about it and understand it. It's in an urban area. Some of the children around here probably don't have the opportunity to get into countryside as much as other people. They'll be able to see things that they wouldn't normally get to see by coming down here. I said this is just one of quite a few that's been done in Sheffield. And
there'll be all types of gardens here, the wild gardens, the water gardens, and all types of plants and shrubs for them to study.
We were very fortunate. We got the services of a landscape architect who lives locally, who came along quite voluntarily and worked with the group of parents and other people who'd shown an interest in this site and developed proposals. In fact, they did a nice design that everyone thought was great. In fact, it wasn't very far into the designing process when the idea of creating a garden that was going to be used by the disabled and for blind, not as a passive thing, but actually get involved and do gardening. And they contacted groups, and we discovered there wasn't many opportunities for people with disabilities to actually get involved in gardening. So they came in, got involved in the consultation as well. So the whole garden was designed to cater for those people as well.
I decided, as I said before, that the main part of the walled area would be formal. So it's an ornamental garden with ornamental features, and the paths are all in a rectangular area with cross-axes and a central pool which is raised, and we'll have planting around it, and that will have a fountain. And then there was the further idea that there should be a memorial garden for the Hillsborough tragedy somewhere within the garden, some specific area where people could sit quietly, and that has been put at the lower end and the nearest to Hillsborough house, the library, because that is the most secluded and most quiet area in the garden. It's the furthest away from the traffic noise and so on, and that is screened, will be screened from the other part, from the main ornamental garden, by this pergola which runs halfway across and makes it a little bit more secluded even. And within that area there will also be a rose garden, as shown. That was another request that came to me right at the beginning, that a rose garden should be part of the scheme.
There's actually 3 or maybe 4 different gardens within it. We have the wildlife area, we have a seated area, which we've looked really maybe to the disabled and the elderly. It's quite sheltered with herbaceous borders. We have a woodland area, which will be accessible for the disabled. We're designing ramps for that. And then we have the formal area. Within the formal area there's rose gardens, there's courtyard that is really specially looked at for those with sighted problems. There will be vegetable plots within there. All of these will be raised beds so that anybody will be able to use them, not just the young, who will be able to use the facilities if they're in a wheelchair. I think we need all to be able to use the same facility. I think it's good for children able-bodied children to be able to work with children who were maybe in wheelchairs or children who were blind. I think it's an important thing, as well as younger children maybe working with elderly. I think in here it's one of the good points that they will be able to maybe meet people that they don't normally meet.
The major thing that is here now that was when it was a nursery is the greenhouse up there, which I actually used to run that greenhouse. It is called a Waldo, and when I first came we grew tomatoes in it, and then we used to grow bedding plants and decorative plants for the town hall decorations, etc., for the city's buildings.
It seemed a fantastic facility, really. So what we decided was to keep the end where the greenhouse is, the top end of the garden, as a working area, the business end of the garden, if you like. So to keep the greenhouse, and to put the nurseries and any areas for propagation and bringing on plants, and for people to come in and actually do practical gardening, really, all at that end, and then keep the rest ornamental.
It's going to look rather good. Already there are some willows from the previous garden, so there's some very nice trees still left from the previous nursery garden, so they'll be interplanted with the new trees that are coming today. I'm donating a rowan tree, and I've got the hole dug out ready, and that should be arriving next week, so I'm looking forward to that coming when I can put it in myself.
We've just had our tree stock delivered, and we're in the process of planting it all out. That's what we'll be doing today. So we are trying to probably put in more species than you would find in such a confined space, actually out in the countryside itself. But the reasons for that are so that we can show people when they come round, the kids when they come round, the different types of trees. They could learn to identify the trees by using this kind of place before they go out into the countryside. Pedunculate oak's not native to this area, but it's a different kind of oak, and it gives people, an opportunity to see the difference between a sessile oak and a pedunculate oak. So this is all part of the educational process.
We put in a lot of bulbs around a lot of areas, so hopefully with a splash of colour there. The trees we're putting in will just be starting to bud. Probably next summer or the summer after to get the full benefit from it. But hopefully there should be quite an impact to start with, especially with the bulbs and everything. Well, we've seeded a meadow over there, which hopefully should start to come up in the spring as well. Right, what's past that? It's there's the central section here. And this is going to be a woodland meadow just in front of where the woodland is here. So hopefully that should start to come through as well. There's wildflowers in there.
In this area we've just laid out, ready for planting, sessile oak, pedunculate oak, field maple, birch, alder. What they're doing now is digging a trench to plant in a hedgerow, and that will incorporate, as I said, different species such as hazel, hawthorn, dog rose, holly, buckthorn. We've planted a lot of native trees. There were a hell of a lot of exotic shrubs that we've taken out. We've not destroyed them, we've transplanted them in various other parts of the garden. But they didn't really fit into the context of a wildlife garden which has got English native species in it. So as I said, they've been removed and we've replanted with all native trees.
As with a lot of conservation, digging is a major part of it. as well as that, we've constructed an area which we're in at the moment, which will be a study area. This consists of a stone wall on the inside and log barrier on the outside, which we're going to plant up with shrubs and things later on in the season. So we've got a large hole at the moment, but it's necessary to grade it, so we've got a shallow bank near the edge, so it's not dangerous for children or other people. So it's deep enough in the centre so it won't freeze over fully in winter. The wildlife can survive there, and yet there's shallow areas around the side where animals can get in and out of the pond as need be.
You're only going to attract a certain number of species. I mean, but you will get a lot of insect life coming in for the plants and round the pond. That'll encourage amphibians into the pond. The insects will encourage more birds to come in. We've got plans to put bat boxes and nest boxes up to encourage birds to actually nest in the garden. And just by having flowers and plants that are native, they complement the wildlife a lot more than just the garden plants. It's a natural draw for them.
Decided to put a pond in for pond dipping, make it quite a good size so that children could have access to it. It's within sight of the classroom block so that children have easy access to it.
Why do you think he's taking his shoes off? Did you see his shoes? What was he wearing before? Great big heavy wellies, wasn't he? What would happen if he tramped all over that? What might he do? No, he doesn't sit down, he can lie down. It might tear, that's my thinking. Yes. Well, it will be a treat. See, when you're grown up, it will be.
We're hoping a lot of the schools will adopt beds within it and take responsibility long term for their upkeep and their maintenance. Hopefully we'll do a bit of fundraising as well.
Well, we've been digging up a garden for kids to explore plants and just explore, really enjoy the nature about it and learn about plants which you're going to plant here.
What plants are you going to plant, do you know?
Well, all sorts. Some that smell, and for them to explore the smell and the look, and just get basically everything to make a sort of tunnel over this trench.
I'm building a wall. It's going to be a wall all down this tunnel so little children can come and sit down. Well, we've done quite well today because it was just flat soil. Really enjoyed it.
We did a poll around people to see whether groups, community groups in the area, social clubs, the schools themselves would be interested in getting involved and providing some of the labour for it. And we also asked some of the training schemes whether they would be interested. The training schemes have rebuilt all the walls that you can see around us here. Done a great job. It's not just a building exercise for them. They have got to try and match the existing brickwork and the existing walls and recreate the feel of a Victorian walled garden. And that is what I think they've quite successfully achieved over the time they've been in here. And I hope they've enjoyed the time they've been in here.
We've got a problem. We never lived with a problem.
CIT is an organisation for training in the building trades, and not only did they help us by rebuilding all the walls, but they've sent down teams of joiners and roofers working on site as well. And they've worked alongside trainees from Conservation Practice Limited. We've got lots of students on the site as well. We've had students down from Parkwood and Parsons Cross colleges. From Parkwood College we had the joiners who built the pergola. They designed it as well. And they've also built many of the raised beds in the garden. The women's construction team from Parkwood also came down and constructed the shutters for the training block for us. From Parsons Cross College we've had a team of horticulturalists, and they can claim credit for most of the woodland walk. Done a magnificent job there. It was a derelict site. There was one heck of a lot of clearance to carry out. You only have to look around you and you can see stones and boulders of all kinds and all description. They've had to be lifted up and raised and moved around. There's been a lot of earth moving, and the people who've been on community service order that have worked here in the garden have put a lot of effort in. They've gone into it with a will because they recognise the project itself is quite special. And so they've worked hard on it, and it's been more than just a chore to them. And the supervisors who've organised the scheme have worked hard on it, and in fact have given us a lot of practical advice and assistance as well. It's been more than just a work placement to them, and for that we are extremely grateful.
We are the mainstay of the labour on this project. We've done all the manual work so far, from stripping off this garden of all its overgrowth, down to the final marking out, digging out, and filling up with this gravel as it stands today.
Regarding the people who's worked on this project up to now, I have nothing but praise for them. People from colleges, probation people, they've done a grand job, the people from the probation services. And it is nice to know that you can appeal to some people and they'll come along and help and do things like this. And if only more people would only get together and use their heads, a lot more can be done. And it won't cost as much as what a lot of it is doing.
The council just don't have the money for a project like this. We're in a position, especially with the trust, it's a charitable trust. We can go for grants and such like that the council actually can't go for. Also, we can have sponsored days, sponsored swims. There's lots of things maybe where we can go and get cash that maybe they can't.
I said it some time ago, you know, we've got to set a target of £110,000. And in fact, in cash terms, that's shrunk because we've had a lot of contributions in kind. A number of major firms have given us offers of materials. The hardcore you see lining the path came free. The materials for the roof for the training centre have been offered free. We've been offered a damp-proof course for the building. A lot of the paving areas have been offered free by different builders, merchants. They've been very, very helpful. project attracted the attention of the trustees of the Hillsborough Disaster Appeal Fund. They had been looking for a way in which they could recognise the contribution that the Hillsborough community made to the events of April the 15th, 1989 and the aftermath. And it wasn't easy to go out and identify individuals that opened their houses because there were so many anyway, and most people did it without any thought of a reward at a later stage. There was a considerable sum of money left in that fund that was being dispersed to various charitable causes. What they hadn't managed to identify was a suitable memorial within Sheffield. There is a Liverpool memorial. They would like to have something in Sheffield, and the families themselves were keen on having something they could come to, and many of them will not go in the football ground. So they asked us if we would be prepared to consider the part of the garden being a memorial garden for those who suffered at the football stadium disaster. The groups thought that was in fact a very nice idea and wholly appropriate with what we were trying to do, which was create a garden which could be used by the whole community of Hillsborough, and in fact people further in Sheffield as well.
To the people of Liverpool who's come here today, I'd like to thank you for coming, and also to say how pleased we are to receive you here today for this memorial dedication service. And it's hoped that as a result of this meeting today, that the bonds between Sheffield and Liverpool will be strengthened even further.
I mean, we've had some fights over this area, parks.
Say about those.
And actually the park was negotiated, a deal was negotiated with the people in the town hall in Sheffield in the late 1800s. See, for people from Sheffield to come into this park. You see, this whole area, you've got to remember, try and remember what Sheffield was like: dirty, muck, smoke, and one thing and another. And the authorities at that time in Sheffield came out into this area and bought the pieces of land like this for the people to come out and enjoy a weekend or something like that. There used to be a bandstand in here at one time. They used to have military bands and all sorts. And anyway, it started getting out of hand. But I think I'm hoping that before anything else happens like this again, that they'll come and talk to the public about these things, because we've every right to keep these things that were left to us by our ancestors.
I've always had a love of parks and horticulture and gardens. It's been my life all these years. I think it'll be untold benefit to Hillsborough for the next many generations, I hope. And also, when we've got it finished, we're hoping that the pensioners will come forward, do us a bit of weeding and little jobs like I've done. I'm not a youngster, but I still hope to carry on and help to maintain it.